I talk a lot in Dungeons and Dragons about the Dungeon Master being in control and how the Dungeon Master can make things happen. However, there's the opposite side of that. Just as much as being able to prepare, sometimes a Dungeon Master needs to allow for randomness and craziness to occur. But how do you do that, and why would you make that happen? That's kind of what I want to talk about, where randomness, letting the players choose, letting the dice decide, makes a difference. Sometimes as a Dungeon Master, you just have to let go. And that means when things aren't going according to what you have prepped, kind of go with the flow. Just as if your players have to go with the flow sometimes with what's happening around them, you should do the same. This really opens you up to be able to improv, and you only get better at it by doing it. It's the worst and best advice I can possibly give when dealing with how to become a better Dungeon Master. Allow the players' choices to be those choices and then go with the flow. Sometimes letting your players decide how things turn out or what they decide to do. When you do that as a Dungeon Master, you have to get better and better at improving. And you'll get better by doing it more and more and more often. That's the last piece of advice I can give when it comes to using randomness and chaos to make you better as a Dungeon Master. What are your thoughts on this? Do you believe that sometimes you have to let things go and just follow the dice and follow the players? Or do you need to be in control for some reason? Neither way is wrong. Neither way is right. I'm an improv DM, so I lean a little bit into chaos. Randomness and using tables in Dungeons & Dragons can allow you to have a game where you don't have to prepare. It's that section where you don't have to create every single encounter. Sometimes the encounters your people go up against are horrible. Sometimes they're amazing. Sometimes you just don't have enough time. But as long as you know I can roll on a table to have an encounter that's random, if they're in a situation that random encounters happen, it works out wonderfully. This allows you as a Dungeon Master to prepare the things that need more preparation, things that need balancing. That really is where you're going to find kind of the balancing act. The things that you can do to prepare, to make for epic encounters, but at the same time, give your players enough choice and options because you can use random tables. Anything from NPCs, anything to vendors, anything from encounters to social encounters to combat encounters. There are plenty of tables out there. Allowing dice to choose for you gives a sense of randomness and reality and liveness that your world exists even outside your head and the players. Sometimes as a Dungeon Master, you have to let the dice lie where they are, the players do what they do, and fall on the sword with your mistakes of an ill-prepared encounter. The reason why is those make for some of the best stories. While I am very much in favor of, if the players are steamrolling your main boss, giving a little bit extra hit points just so something can occur, I'm also in favor, at the same time, of letting your players just steamroll a boss when it's well thought out and planned. Now, that kind of makes me the arbitrary of everything, the arbiter of everything, and I'm the one that gets to say what goes. Well, that's true. As a Dungeon Master this size. And so sometimes letting go of that control allows for amazing stories, especially when there's something beyond it. It's one thing if you've built this huge epic boss battle and your players are just mowing through it and you want it to be epic, you're a Dungeon Master. It's the only chance you get to actually do things like that. At the same time, if there's more story to be had afterwards, that can leave for the most epic moment where your players walk in, the big bad's there, and they mow through them. And then the story moves on. So why should you let your players have a say in what happens in your world? Because they're invested. I have done videos that said the Dungeon Master's in control. But when the Dungeon Master gives up some of that control and lets their players have a guy, have information about where they're from that they may not have known, when the players have a stake in the world, now they're invested. The thing is sometimes you just have to talk about these things outside of your player character Dungeon Master role offline. What would you like to see from this? Why would you like to have this in your background? How would you use it in the story? And then roll with it. When the players are invested in the building of your world, even if it's preset, even if you've already done it, you can always retcon it later. I know that may be taboo. Retcon later? Why do that? Because it allows for us to make mistakes, to act now, allow the players to be invested in the world, and a lot of times your players will come up with things that you as a Dungeon Master never thought of, really bringing some rich flavor to a world that you spend so much time on. So why should dice rolls matter in Dungeons & Dragons? Despite the fact that it's part of the game, there's a reason why. I did a video the other day saying the DM is an ultimate control, can override everything. However, I think that the dice should have some bearing in the game. Here's the reason why. Number one, it brings consistency to the game. I said consistency, not randomness. If you roll 1d6, you have a chance of getting a 1 through 6 all the same. If you roll 2d6, you have more of a chance of getting in the center. The more dice that are rolled, the more you're going to centralize something. The fewer the dice roll, the more swingy things become. So when you're using dice, you can have that swing and that consistency on the same. Also, it's part of the game. It's part of the fun of, well, do I get there? Don't I get there? The randomness that it gives allows for players to tell different stories that they may not have planned. The super sneaky rogue that rolls the natural one and alerts the guards is just as fun as the rogue that sneaks on by. What do you think about this?